Hi, and we are finally live. Hi everyone, this is Maria. I'd like to welcome you all for today's Ask a Mentor session. This time with a very special guest, Laila Binbrek, and she'll be joining us very soon. Laila is the coordinating director for the Pavilion at the Venice Biennale, representing the Dubai, and she basically has this ongoing operations and team working on strategy, the visions, working on local artists and international artists as well as curators. And I'll let her tell us more about her experience in the cultural scene in Dubai.
My name is Laila Binbrek. I am the coordinating director for the UA Pavilion at the Venice Biennale. We do the art and architecture exhibitions every other year, and I have been doing this job for the last I'm going into my 7th year, and I've been living in Dubai since 2006, so I've been here a while.
And before working at the third line.
Yeah, so when I moved in 2006, I moved from Toronto to Dubai. I was curious about the art scene. I'd read online that things were kind of moving and shifting and kind of changing, and there were some new exciting galleries opening. So I moved out here to kind of check it out and looked around. My first job actually was at Dubai Community Theatre and Art Center, which was a new concept here, and I worked there as the art center manager for a year before joining the Third Line, one of the first contemporary galleries specializing in Middle Eastern art in the region. And I was there and was gallery director for about 6 years, and we specialized in representing artists from the Manassa region who lived within the area and also who lived in the diaspora as well.
All right. Which is this one. What and when was your first arts? Did this start?
My first, I guess, you know, I didn't intend to go into a career. I mean, it wasn't one of those like 5-year or 10-year plans. I'm going to be working, you know, managing Pavilion at the Venice Biennale or working in a gallery. For me, I studied fine arts in university, so I studied drawing, sculpture, and a bit of painting. I did a 4-year course. I lived the life of an artist for a couple of years, and then realized I couldn't pay my bills, so I needed to get a real, you know, you do part-time jobs, and then you get a full-time job. And you know, it was hard kind of balancing full-time work and trying to be creative at the same time. And I also moved to the city, so I'd moved to Toronto from a smaller town in Canada, and it was hard. I have to say it was hard. So it was trying to kind of balance things a little bit. And I would say the thing that kind of shifted and changed for me was after September 11th, and kind of like this need within the community of another way of telling stories, another way of how else can you engage within the community. And I started doing a lot of community work, organizing festivals, and sitting on committees and things like that to kind of just change the narrative around how people viewed Arabs, Muslims, or the other, so to speak. And I did that for quite a few years before moving to Dubai. And so my job in Toronto had nothing to do with the arts, and nothing at all. It was a web development company. So, you know, you kind of learn things as you go along. But the community work and the work that I did, so I found myself shifting a little bit away from the practice of being a visual artist to kind of using arts or create, you know, using arts as a way to communicate and tell stories.
Yeah.
And to tell stories that are probably there but maybe hidden or unknown. And So when I moved to the UAE, I took it as an opportunity to kind of really explore that side, especially since, you know, Dubai in 2006 is a very different Dubai, or UAE as a country is a very different country now than it was then. The amount of growth that you've seen developing here is actually quite phenomenal and, you know, exciting. It was really exciting, and it still is exciting, but like especially those first 10 years of living here, it was really exciting to be a part of this country kind of shifting into its second phase of kind of really getting to know itself and you know, developing and kind of, you know, this art scene. Not to say that the art scene didn't exist, but it was, you know, it was shifting into another kind of format in a way. And with my work at the Third Line specifically, because we did a lot of international fairs, you could see that there was really this hunger and thirst for knowledge about the region in general, and you know what was going on there. There were so many misconceptions, and so by default, not only were we in the fair representing our artists and kind of communicating what they do and but we also were not just, we were representatives of like Dubai, the city, the UAE as a country, the region. You know, it was a really interesting moment of time to be in the arts. So you could see it kind of, you know, developing. I mean, the art scene here has been around since, you know, 1970s, 1980s. I mean, the country unified in 1971. So as a country, it's still quite young, and to see how much it has kind of grown and accomplished over the kind of these past years is really amazing. And to be a part of that kind of narrative and story is exciting. And that's what really excites me about my job right now, so to speak.
What do you think in this in the Dubai? As you said, it's growing quite fast and really into grand and
yeah,
community based.
I think it's, you know, it was, to be honest, I think it was a number of things that were happening that were all catalysts to move and shift things forward. I mean, on the one hand, you had a lot of young, you know, Emiratis and long-term residents, so kids who had been born here, grown up here, gone away, they'd left, gone to university, and had come back, you know, around 2004, 2005, and were really, you know, committed to the, you know, being here and starting their own businesses, starting new ideas. There were a lot of these new concepts, whether it be galleries or fashion or music, or so there was that kind of move happening. And then you also had, as a country and as a city, Dubai, you know, was very much geared towards this vision of the future. Like, how do we, you know, let's move away from just focusing on oil. Let's focus on promoting ourselves. People should come here and invest here and build here. And, you know, they had the film festival and all of these other exciting stuff. And then, you know, I would say around 2000, end of 2006, 2007, we had the Dubai Art Fair. Art Dubai started. You also had the first auctions with Christie's, so the auction houses started coming here. So all of these kind of things, you know, this interest in, you know, artists from the region was definitely an interest to international audiences. And then here too, they really had that kind of will to, okay, you know what, we focused the last couple of years on building our businesses. Now let's focus on how we can build, you know, tourism, culture, like all these other initiatives. And I don't know if anyone remembers, but in 2007 is when they announced the museum projects, which was very ambitious. I mean, this is the beauty of things here is that, you know, you can dream, like dream away as much as you can. Some things might work out the way that you want. Some things might end up taking a bit longer. So, you know, at the moment we have the Louvre Abu Dhabi, which is out of the 5 museums, the one that actually has been built yet. But the other ones are coming and they'll take their own time. And, you know, recessions happen and, you know, all that other kind of stuff. So it is, I would say around about that time was a definite shift. And I think now over these next couple of years, we'll also see, okay, so those first 10 years was a growth spurt, and now we're going into the next one, which is like, okay, we did that, we were like kids, and now we're graduating from university. What are we going to do with ourselves now? Like, how do we move into that next phase? So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's very, very, and I something which I've been there. It's quite impressive, productive,
Mm-hmm.
prolific, and there is.
Yeah.
How do you creatives affect hand in evolution?
Okay, so repeat that question one more time. I heard part of it.
Sorry. How do you feel it's actually the culture strategy towards the development into attracting?
I mean, the beauty of the cultural industry or the creative industries, let's say the artists, the galleries, is that they for those first 10 years, I would say first 10, 12, 13 years, they were really homegrown initiatives. They weren't necessarily, I mean, if we put aside what's happening in Abu Dhabi, which is more, I would say Abu Dhabi is the capital, it's more institutional, it's where, the headquarters for a majority of the larger, oil producing company, like it's the seat of government and everything else. And it's, more institutional. So, you have the museums being built there and everything else, and it's a more kind of curated development and growth. Whereas in Dubai, it's really organic. Like a lot of every gallery is a personal initiative of individuals. It's not government funded. It's not government supported. They really are, whether it's, like whether it's like an eating concept or fashion brands or let's say, alternative cinemas. These are all individuals who have a passion for that topic or for that, genre, and they've pursued their dreams and they've made them happen here. There aren't, like there is a Ministry of Culture and everything else and all that kind of stuff, but it's very federal. It's not the same way, that it doesn't function in the same way as a lot of other countries. So there isn't a lot of financial help that way for, let's say, the average, let's say, artist who's working here, So you kind of have to struggle a little bit. And a lot of them, as I think also as artists anywhere, you have to have another job while you still practice being an artist, right? So until somehow you eventually earn a living through your work or that kind of thing. So but it's changing slowly. Like you can see things are shifting and changing slowly. That government is realizing that in order to keep, especially with COVID, with our recent kind of, with the pandemic and everything else, and if you want to continue, if these industries are very fragile anyway in any country, right? If you're a gallery owner or an NGO or you work in the creative industries, it's always very, difficult. It's always a bit of a challenge. So having a lockdown doesn't help so much. And I think it's really brought to light that, initiatives need to be put in place to help the communities that have benefited, everyone kind of survive a little bit more. So, and you're seeing some of those initiatives coming up.
So next question. How has why?
Well, I would say COVID. I mean, the pandemic, the COVID has affected everybody. I think it's been a bit crazy. I mean, those first, everything pretty much shut down in March. March is usually, so we have seasons, right? Also because the weather. So we have, September to December is like a season, and then you have, January, March, April, kind of May before it starts getting really hot and it's really hard to do things. And so March is a huge art season here. There's Art Dubai. There's usually Sharjah Biennial happening at the same time. You know, there are a lot of things happening, and we all went into lockdown just before that. And a lot of people rely on those, not just in terms of business, but also in terms of connections and meeting people. It was very difficult, I would say. And I think that first month of lockdown was difficult for everyone because it was quite a severe, like you couldn't get out without a permit and everything else and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, the beauty of here is that people are resilient. Like I said, people dream and they do and they make things happen. So suddenly you saw online, you know, like flourishing, like, you know, art talks, or like we suddenly had these opportunities. One, because we also had the time to, you know, have virtual studio visits with artists, you know, or sit down and listen to, you know, an artist talk about their practice in a very kind of, in it, you know, the reach was so much wider. And I have to say the community here is very supportive of each other in general, that when, you know, new initiatives start, when people are trying out new platforms, that kind of thing, in most of the time, like, we always are there usually to support. And it's been quite busy. Like, I have to say, I was really busy during that period of time, and we're still busy. Even though the Biennale got canceled this year, we were still, you know, if it, you know, maybe work-wise kind of slowed down a little bit, but in terms of keeping up with what people were doing, and some people were really prolific during that period of time. So it gave you more time for reflection, you know, introspection and reflection, and for some people just to kind of just focus on their practice in a way, and just focus on what's important, and take time to kind of do some house cleaning, so to speak. So I would say business-wise, it was difficult, like any business. So I know galleries were having a really hard time. I mean, obviously it's a business, you have to pay rent, you know, if you're not selling work and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of the mental health of the community, I think it's doing okay, you know, as best as can be. We recently had a bunch of openings on the Saturday where quite a number of galleries had some new shows. So we were able to go, you know, obviously socially distanced with our masks, you know, you make an appointment, you go, and it was busy. People were out. So it's good. It shows kind of that we will, in general, bounce back from it, and everything else. Yeah.
Okay. What are factors which of artists for the pavilion?
For us, so I mean, I can't speak for all national pavilions. I mean, every country, every pavilion has their own methodology. For us, we have a unique situation in that we have a team that's dedicated to overseeing the National Pavilion. So I have a small team. There's 5 of us in total, an exhibitions coordinator, a communications manager, office coordinator, and we have an internship program that we run. And between us, we oversee the pavilion. And I work with our supporters. So the Salama bint Hamdan Al Nahyan Foundation, which is a private family foundation based out of Abu Dhabi, is the commissioner for the National Pavilion. And we are also supported by the Ministry of Culture. So together with them, we have a committee structure where we select who our curators or artists are going to be, depending if it's art or architecture. But I would say our main focus and I would say vision is to tell an untold story of the UAE through art and architecture. And specifically, you know, art is a little bit more vague because artists, you know, it's slightly different kind of practice, but through architecture specifically, we want our curators to find a way to tell stories that people don't know about the UAE. So we don't want stories about, oh, look, the Burj Khalifa was built. Like that is not something, we don't believe in this idea of promoting star architects or anything like that. It's really about how do we use our platform in Venice to articulate that the UAE is a lot more diverse and has so many more interesting stories than might be perceived. Some of these stories are also quite new to the population that lives here too, right? So it's an opportunity for us to dig a little bit deeper than that surface kind of impression. And we push our curators and our artists our contributors to do that. And what we do also, we see it as a way of kind of promoting this idea of, research into the stories of what makes this country what it is. Now, eventually, obviously, not every pavilion is going to tell every single story. It's going to tell a microcosm of a story because, again, you only have a certain period of time from once the curator is selected to once the opening. It's like 6 months usually. So they don't have a lot of time to really do in-depth, super in-depth. And some of them are not academic. Some of them are, like our curators for the architecture this year are practicing architects, but they have a passion and an idea that they wanted to explore. And we help them do that. And every year we also work really hard to produce a publication around each exhibition so that the legacy of the research or the topics that they're exploring kind of lives on, because there isn't a lot of that here yet. So, like I said, it's a very young country. It's going to turn 50 next year. The country's 50th birthdays in 2021. So, it's kind of a baby compared to some of the other pavilions that have been out there. So for us, it's how better each year we kind of think, how can we be a little bit more nuanced in the story that we're telling? And how can we, generate that kind of interest? And we found that kind of has really worked because we have people who come back to our pavilion every year and they're starting to slowly kind of develop and understand just a little bit more, maybe who we are kind of thing. And so I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's kind of more or less how we go about it. Although I have to say for this year, for the 2020, what would have been our 2020 pavilion for architecture, we actually decided to do an open call, an international open call, because we felt that we wanted to find out who. I mean, there are a lot of people who go out and are doing their masters or PhDs or academics who are studying overseas, who used to maybe live here or in the region. And it was a way for us to kind of see what was happening out there. In the end, the committee ended up selecting a firm, a homegrown architectural firm, and they're exploring a very interesting topic around the UAE subkhas, which is like salt flats that exist in the UAE, but also exist in other countries around the world. But they're looking at it in a very particular way. So it's, I always feel like I'm learning something also whenever, especially in the architecture, I always feel like I'm learning something more. And with the artists, you always learn more about their practices as well.
When was the first participated pavilion?
The first pavilion was in 2009. So the UAE participated in 2009, and then 2011, and then in 2013. And that's when they signed their long-term lease to get a permanent space in the pavilion. And 2014 onwards, we have been in our permanent space, and we do the art and the architecture biennales, which alternate every year. So yeah, and I joined the pavilion team in 2014. So I wasn't part of the first three. I was a visitor in those days. So yeah.
Question about. Can you tell us more?
The Venice Internship program. Okay. Good you asked me that, because it's a really great program that actually has been functioning since 2009. And what we do is we send interns from the UAE. We send 21 interns in batches of 3. So every month, 3 interns go to Venice to oversee our pavilion for a month. So they get to spend from when it opens. So the pavilion usually is open from May to November. And so that way they get experience of working an international exhibition. They get an experience of representing their country. We partner them up with a student from the University of Venice, Ca' Foscari, so we have an Italian intern who is studying Arabic language or Middle Eastern studies. So they also so it's like a bit of a cultural exchange happening there. And, over the years, this program originally it started as a volunteer program in 2009, but it's now developed into, a training program. So we give them training before they go. While they're in Venice, they also attend lectures and workshops to kind of help them understand more about what's happening in the Biennale. It's an opportunity for them. And usually those interns are individuals who are, interested in the creative industry. So like they're either artists themselves, or they work in the arts, or they're architects, or they're designers, or even we've had quite a few who are international, people who are going into the diplomatic corps. They're really interested to know more about, they want to go into the diplomatic corps, but like under culture. So they come and also do our internship too, to really understand what it means to represent your country and to also be in these kind of international art events, right? So to get outside of the bubble that we're in here in the country. And I would say, we've had almost 200 interns go through our program over the last 9 pavilions. And, I think I can confidently say that in any arts institution in the UAE, you will find one of our interns there working, So some of them have gone on to be full-fledged artists. In fact, in 2017, one of the artists in that pavilion was a former intern, so was selected by our curator to be in that exhibition. And, some of our interns are now working at the Guggenheim. They work at the Louvre Abu Dhabi. They are curators in their own right. They're researchers. They have their own companies. So it's really exciting to see. They've gone on to do a number of other internships or gone on to study. 1 or 2 have said, I'm not interested, after doing the internship, they're like, okay, maybe the arts isn't for me, kind of thing. But
no, it gives them of which pod, and
exactly,
and it's
yeah.
there. And here send to the we've only participated twice.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very they also send their to for the pavilion. I mean, it's great experience here. Malta is small,
yeah,
extremely small. So it's for have an idea.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Great,
I mean,
very
yeah, and it's difficult. Not everyone is able to go to Venice and to go to the Biennale, and there's still a lot of people who don't even really know what it is. I have some family members who still don't really understand. I mean, this is the thing. You go into the arts, and we used to have this saying in the gallery that you have to be a little bit crazy, a little bit and super passionate. Like you go into it because you're passionate about it, and if you're successful, great. But if you're successful and also get recognition, that's even better, But if you really believe in what you do, then you should just, do it and do it with integrity at the end of the day. And, the rewards will come eventually, whether you're practicing. And also, there's so many ways for you to be involved beyond, I mean, one of the interesting things is when we do the internship interviews and we get, when we only have 21 spots, but we get like over 300 applications every year, right? So it's a lot of resumes that you have to read through. And we usually narrow it down to about 80 that we meet and we interview. And It's like a whole process of how we select our interns. And it's fascinating to kind of see that, the perception is that if you're going to go into the arts, you're either going to be an artist or you're going to be a curator. And that's it. Like, nobody realizes that there's a whole other spectrum of how you can be involved in the arts or the creative industries. There's so many different ways, and you don't have to be so tied to that one title. There's so many other options out there, and usually by the time they've come back from the Biennale, they from their time in Venice, they usually, and meeting other people and seeing how other people are doing things, so they realize that there's so many other ways that they could be participating in their community. Like being an architect isn't, I'm just going to go build a building, but there's so many other ways that you can be involved within your community and shape the community that you're in as well.
Great. Many roles because so overwhelming.
Okay.
How important internationalize, like what's
For an artist to be seen internationally? To be honest, I don't know. I mean, I think if you're pursuing a career as a visual artist, which can mean many things. It can be performance, it can be whatever. I think really you just need to follow what's in your heart and do your practice. Have exhibitions, have shows. It's great to be partnered up with a gallery, but you need to find the right fit for you, first of all. And then it's really up to if you have the opportunity to it's like a network at the end of the day. The more you participate in that network, the better. But don't do it at the expense of your creativity and your work. Like, don't compromise on that. And getting international recognition is great. It's amazing. I know it's amazing because I represented artists, and you take them to fairs, and it's really great when they suddenly become popular. But that popularity can go away in an instant. And at the end of the day, you need to make sure. Collectors at the end of the day appreciate artists who have longevity. So prove your longevity, continue in your practice, develop it. It's more important to have network with your peers than, let's say, focusing, oh my God, I need to be in this museum or I need to be at that art fair. You really should be just working on your practice. Having conversations with your peers so that you can make sure that your practice and what you're doing is authentic and genuine, and all of that other stuff will come. Will eventually come.
I think
that would be my advice.
Cases takes sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it does. It takes the focus away. When you worry. I mean, I get it. I mean, artists at the end of the day, especially if that's the way that you live and how you pay your bills, I understand that you need to do that. You need to sell and everything else, and I understand. So everyone needs to make the choice for themselves. But international recognition is one very, very hard. But so yes, it's great to have it, but don't make that your be-all and end-all. There's a lot of value for having support within your community and people who appreciate what you do. And there's many, many ways that you can live in your practice. Also, be patient. It takes time. The art world is very fickle. So, you can be like the superstar one day and then be ignored the next day. So, like, it's a little bit of give and take there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hey. What's our values pursuing this? Be it whatever.
Values. For me, it is, like I said, you need to be a little bit crazy and passionate. You have to love what you do. I don't think you can really be in the arts if you don't love doing it. Because it can be very disheartening at times when things don't really work out, or just things happen. And I would just say be true to yourself at the end of the day. Try not, don't compromise your ideals. Compromise, there's always compromises to be made, but at the end of the day, just retain your integrity. Try to always ask yourself, am I still passionate about what I do? If you're not, then ask yourself why, and how can you regain that passion? Sometimes it just requires a mind shift, because we all, especially, when you're working more on the administrative side of things, it can get a little bit mundane, like any job. I mean, it's not as glamorous, everybody who's watching, as you think. It's really not as glamorous as you think. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of sitting in front of the laptop. There's a lot of emails and phone calls and, chasing people to get back to you, and, budget sheets and Excel sheets, which is my nightmare to do, and planning. It's like project management, so, and you work with a lot of different personalities, so you have to have a lot of patience from our side of things, right? So, you have to, every once in a while, recalibrate what is your passion, and just remind yourself, where is that if you've lost sight of it, how do you regain it, and how do you kind of refocus yourself so that you stay passionate, and if you're not, and retain your own personal integrity as well at the end of the day. Those would be my values.
Totally. You couldn't have said it.
Thanks.
What's the future? What are your
my plans for the future? Yes. I don't know. Is it really? Can we plan for the future? I feel every day.
Not anymore.
I mean, listen. Everything has gone upside down since March, right? I mean, it's just gone all over the place, right? So I think, if anything, what it's taught us is that, yes, to have plans, but also to find a way, you need to have a certain amount of flexibility also, if you work in the arts, to be able to shift and change with the environment and the scenarios that you're presented with. I mean, so for us, our future in terms of, the Pavilion, next year will be our 10th participation. So we're working up towards that. Is constantly looking, how can we tweak what we do in terms of our practices, in terms of the stories we're telling. The more immediate future, we have an announcement coming out soon about our next art pavilion, which will be in 2022. So we're announcing, we have a big announcement coming out soon. So we've been busy working on that. And then we also have our architecture pavilion, which was postponed to next year. So we're constantly working on that and trying to, with the curators, to kind of make sure that the interest is still there, and always working with the community, always trying to work with our partners here within our other institutions and organizations here in the UAE to kind of maintain those partnerships, because we wouldn't be who we are without that kind of support. And support meaning that people show up, they come to the openings, they come to the talks, just like we go to theirs, they come to ours. So you just kind of, and just being aware, and you never know what opportunities also will come up. So at the moment, those are my plans for the future. Maybe personally, I will finish some of the paintings I started during the lockdown. I don't know. Yeah, this one. So, I have a lot of these half-finished projects lying around the house, so maybe I'll get those done, as the immediate future. And I'm really hoping to go visit my family in Toronto in December. So I really hope I can, with masked, gloved, whatever I need to do to get out of here to go visit them, that is my focus for now. And we're going to take it step by step, day by day, and just see what we can do.
Yeah. So last question. Advice. Would give someone out in now, one of your who just came back. She has big idea.
Just graduated and just wants to get into the industry and just starting. I would say don't give up. You're going to hit some rock walls here and there. I mean, working in the arts can be quite tumultuous sometimes, you know. But if you love it, just keep, like I said before, just keep reminding yourself why you're doing it. Always take every opportunity as a learning moment, and always pay attention. Pay attention to what's happening around you, because there's always opportunities to make things happen or make connections happen. And also just do your job well. Do whatever it is that you're doing well, and you will then be recognized for it at the end of the day. So, don't spend, so let's say you just joined a gallery, for example, and you're just trying to focus on like, who can I make connections with, whatever. You probably have a job or a role that you have in that gallery. Do that job really, really well as making connections. Like, don't do what you're meant to do. Or if you're an artist just starting in their career, go to openings, go to shows, build your network, and in the end, that network will help you kind of figure out, either group shows or opportunities or grants. Constantly find ways to grow. And don't give up. Have a lot of patience. Patience is key.
Patience.
Yeah.
And I think that's these networks in the arts that you must and I think it's very these kind of community and have environments to help you continue.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Totally agreed. I mean, I totally understand that, especially if you're a practicing artist and that you have a practice, whatever that practice might be, that you want to seclude yourself in your studio and just do what you're doing. And I know sometimes, human interactions can be a little bit, I know openings can be a little bit much sometimes with all the, hi, how are you, and the air kissing and all that other kind of stuff. You don't necessarily need to, it's good to show your face at openings. You don't need to stay for very long, but at least go. But it's very important, I would say, to go and see what is happening in your community. Be aware of what are the conversations happening, what are the projects people are working on, because you never know what synergies are there. And you don't necessarily have to be present at every single thing, but it's not too difficult to kind of just be aware and be supportive, and also support your peers, because you'll want them to support you at the end of the day as well.
Exactly.
That would be my advice.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I wish you for the next happening this week. When is it happening?
On the 28th. There'll be an announcement coming out, so keep your eyes out for it. It'll be coming out on eFlux. It'll be on our website, nationalpavilionuae.org. I'll most probably be posting it on my Instagram as well as Facebook. So, it'll be coming out on the 28th, and we're super excited about it. We've been working on this for the last year and a half to get all the, this is the thing also with the pavilion. It doesn't happen just overnight. It takes a good, we usually start thinking and working on the next pavilion at least, because there are so many elements that have to be brought together, that we usually start thinking about it at least 2 years in advance, if not more. So in terms of what are the players that we need to bring in, how do we, getting all parties on board, getting all our supporters on board. We also have a process to go through, the committees, the approvals, or whatever, that kind of thing. So it takes time, right? And then you want to give those curators and artists and whatever time to do what they need to do. So we're really excited about this next one coming up.
Some people work is behind the one city pavilion. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Pieces. Enormous positive.
Exactly. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, whether it's whether it's, I mean, and also if it's a national pavilion, it's not just an exhibition like you would have in a community space or in a gallery. That curator, that artist, that architect, whoever, has a responsibility of representing the country. So that comes with a lot of weight towards it. And our job, my team and I, our job is to support them and facilitate their vision in the pavilion, and also to ensure that all of our stakeholders are on board as well and supportive, and the community as well. Our community here within the UAE, make them aware of what they're doing. And nobody understand. I mean, people don't always realize it unless they've worked in the arts. The amount of work that goes into, I mean, I'm sure you know, just to put on an exhibition, the amount of work that it takes to do that, right? So, and then, just imagine that triple or, quadruple that, for a national pavilion. It's like it's a whole other kettle of fish. Yeah.
So I used to work there's abroad. Oh, they have two with the pavilion. In just that 8 months. So it's a lot of
It is a lot of work. Keeps you busy. And that's why I say you need to be passionate. Otherwise, yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It has been great. It's on Facebook. You can share it.
Amazing.
Yes, and we'll be your quotes. Mention some. It would be shared.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me. This has been really great, despite our little technical issues here and there. But this is a lot of fun. Thank you.
Okay. You have a. It's 9.
Yeah. So it's probably close to 10. I think. I'm not sure what time it is right now. But yeah. It'll be bedtime soon. I need to feed the cat. I don't know where he is. He's hiding somewhere. I'm not sure where he is.
In the scenes.
I thought he would make an appearance, but I think he's hiding.
He would have.
He would have, but it's okay.
All right.
It's all good. All right. Thank you.
And best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye. Ciao.